So my cucumbers have, in very low lighting, just out of the worm compost, started growing their first true leaf, which is very cool. But like, I can't deal with this fly infestation any longer. So I did was mulch the hell out of them and planted a couple plants in this one. This is a volunteer tomato, probably some kind of beefsteak. And that is the one that got bit in half by the deer that actually got hit by a car, it seems. So I thought I was gonna have to get my hunting license. And there's those two cucumber. Look at this guy. It's actually growing. This is a cucumber, broken vine, growing roots right in there. Morning glory. And two moonflower vines. All right, so clearly we got some great basil going, but there's a problem. The tanks aren't circulating, and it's just like it gets wet muck and dry muck, wet muck and dry muck. They got to circulate. I mean, that's been good so far, but it's not the best. So we keep improving. Look at the Thai basil. I moved the Genovese basil. No sweet basil yet. Purple opal, no. Red Freddy, no. Look at that Persian basil. Look at that. That's pretty, huh? Look at that. The Greek basil. A lot of these, every single clone has lived. Every single clone has lived with the basil. We got the mammoth basil. The leaves are much bigger on that. We got the Emerald Towers basil. No spicy savor. All of this is cinnamon basil. We got the lemon basil and the lime basil. They smell different, they taste different, but they look almost identical. The other ones have like differences. So I never knew what I was going to use for a screen, so I couldn't circulate these. But here, if this zip tied in, will it be the right size material, size holes or not? I don't know. We'll try it. Oh. All right, I got to open the valve underneath. Oh. And that is draining into a bucket. It's obviously not a good connection. So, a couple observations. Either it's draining up too high, like the riser is too high, which is adjustable, by the way. You just stick a higher riser, you could fill up the whole tank with water, you know? Or if this is a good water height right here, it needs more gravel or perlite. Because, as you can see, the water level is naturally resting above all the vulcanite. That's what I'm using for gravel. You could use gravel, perlite, vulcanite. Perlite would float though. Vulcanite I like because it's lighter than gravel and it does not float. Unfortunately, I can't fully automate these yet because most of them are having a little bit of a dripping issue. They're old secondhand systems. But so what I did was, you see here is there's tanks below. I just took like the cap from a milk container and put it over the drain so that when it drips from below, it stays in the tank, can't go right through to the floor. But at least I can flush them out. Well, it pretty much sucks that I can't get this all like totally plumbed in and way automated. It's not that there's a problem with the valves or the actual pieces, it's that they're not seated and sealed correctly anymore. So really what I have to do is break down each one of the systems, each one of the boxes, rather, box, 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 each one of them, dry them out, and re-silicone the parts that need to be sealed with silicone again. But it's funny because, like anything, um, every time you touch it, try to make it a little better. Still make it, instead of making it worse. Things need fixing over time, occasionally. But every time you touch it, try and make it a little bit better than it was before. So it's the next day, and I know, without tearing all of them apart, which ones need the most attention and which ones are actually probably good to go for a bit. So maybe I can do some automation. And I got, some more clones done. This is what the other side looks like. And that is a lot of basil just from doing clones, cuttings, clones. The sweet potatoes are growing so good. I'm going to try taking some of the scapes off and growing those. I don't know if they're ready. It's an experiment. Wow, look at those. That's a lot. So I'm going to try and transplant them out. And they got roots, so I'm hopeful. These are edible, by the way. But when they get to be like mature-ish type leaves like this, the texture, I would highly suggest cooking them. And I'm just starting to learn about eating them myself. Here we go. Those sweet potato slips are tucked in on the potato side, with the Native American Indian ceremonial tobacco, the regular potatoes, and the color varieties of cherry tomatoes. Just look how beautiful this jewelweed. Yeah, it's good to eat, huh? The flowers and the seed pods, maybe the leaves. Deers bite the tops right off of them too. Turkeys get the like little underside. So alright, look how beautiful this is. Here's the seed pods. This is why they're called touch me not. You see that? Exploded. Look at that. Spring loaded with pressure. Maybe this one is mature enough. I don't know. Let's try and squeeze it too. A little bit, a little bit. See? Are they beautiful? Look at all those little flowers. Look at these. There's actually two heads on them. This one's more like a flame, and that one's more like a coxcomb, they call it. It's like a coral look. See a flame? These also have the coral look. Alright, it's very early September at this point, and Have you fertilized the things in your yard? Have you kept fertilizing them? You know, this is chemical fertilizer. It's not even Miracle Grow. It's, well, I mean, it is Miracle Grow. But it's very common, very cheap. And if you don't overdo it, I suppose it's not going to end the world. You know, it might even contribute to the health of your garden. So just get out. All I do is add a couple scoops. They're like teaspoon scoops of this stuff per watering canister. See, 2 of those. And water everything. Just an ordinary watering can. My fancy bird have a dust bath. Very happy camper. All right, the established jewelweed is covered with flowers and bees, occasional hummingbird. The transplanted jewelweed has grown more leaves and flowers. Sister's garden, thriving. And keep in mind, I planted a lot of this stuff the end of July, mid-July. So it's been growing like maybe a month and a half. Look at this stuff. Look at this stuff. Swiss stars. Looks like it's grown since yesterday. Again, look at the difference in the seed heads, the flower heads. This one's like a flame, and this one's like looks like a coral, and they call it a coxcomb. I don't know if that's normal or not. What happened? Look, if you want these to grow really good, you have got to train them by hand, because I let them grow wild for a few days and they just made a tangled mess that did not grow up the tree. It grew and flopped over. So I've got to correct all this. If you want your plants to grow nice, you have to tend to them. Look at all this vine. All right, what's important to know about my celosia is that these were saved from seeds I grew like last year or so. I mean, the plants were not this big. They were small. Like maybe the biggest was like this, but they made some seeds. And when they make seeds, they make a lot of seeds. So this is from them seeds, which is interesting because I haven't seen this style of flower head on this type of celosia. It usually looks like this. So obviously I keep saving seed from these, and when I save seed from these, they'll be marked separate. Also, from a different seed source, we got the little celosia growing. It's growing nice. I'll have to divide it from a different cellar. The transplanted pumpkins are growing good, and all the pumpkins and squash are starting to give flowers. So these are trout lilies. These are trout lily berries. And they are one of the most intensely hot things, almost like completely will like blister your lip, like as soon as you try and put it in your mouth. I found these growing on the land, and I'll plant the berries. I've got more. You guys remember Bambi? Bambi was like tiny, out there eating apples. See that crunch? Alright, you guys may remember these as my worm farms. It's a bucket with a hole, drainage hole, about 2 inches or so from the bottom inside a solid bucket to catch the water. Not necessary outside, but because this is going to be a deck, catch the water. So the only maintenance I have to do is keep them watered, which it's been raining and they're outside, and dump this water so like fresh water can circulate through and excess water can leave the buckets. There's probably still worms in them. Also in them, I've got 2 cucumber vines. And look at this. My volunteer tomato, probably some kind of beefsteak maybe, has flowers. Pretty cool. And then this grew back from the roots. The clone didn't take. But can you see? Can you see? I don't know if it's focusing. Can you tell? Right there. Can you tell? This is what you're dealing with. It's actually really good fertilizer for other plants. As you can see, these plants are quite healthy. Look at all the flower buds on the pumpkins. Look at all. Guys, back to my celosia experiment again. It's forest fire variety, and this one has a flame flower head, and this one has a coxcomb. Cock. Oh, yeah, like the bird. It'll be interesting. And I love how like these ones have like the nice like wide leaves to them. They're just a beautiful form. And obviously 2 different forms here. And the little ones growing are from a different source. It'll be interesting to see how they may differ, even though they're all forest fire, celosia. The 3 sisters, all right, corn, bean, and squash. But it is actually good to grow something around the perimeter of the mound, like basil, genovese, we got cilantro. I just want you to see the difference in growing the herbs outside as opposed to in the light. Look at the size of the dill. And it grows so nice as a perimeter. We got one more to show off out here. We got some sage. The beans are getting flowers. The Swiss chard, isn't it nuts? Look at the shine and color. Look at this color. Look at this color. Look at these colors. How big that leaf is. It's huge. The size of the squash leaf. Actually, this is a pumpkin leaf. So, Bun and I hope you enjoyed this tour of the garden. It's still very early September. So, fertilize things in your yard, divide things in your yard, transfer things in your yard, prune things in your yard. Take care, y'all. Oh, and Show You Grow Challenge.